very pleased to welcome what I consider to be a unique guest. She's also an incredible friend. I had a chance to meet her at a conference in 2018 in Atlanta, and I'm so captivated by her story, but also her role in sports. It's one that is becoming more prevalent, but I still think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So we welcome Coach Darleen Santore, who is a mental conditioning coach, a peak performance coach. She's an occupational therapist. She goes by a lot of different titles. Dar, why don't we start with something really easy? Why is your role as a peak performance coach something that teams are coveting more and more?
It's important because we're starting to look at, if we're trying to get the best out of our players and people, we have to start looking at the human more. And that human side of it is really the mental wellness side of it, the mental edge of a person, and also the emotional intelligence that goes with it. There's so many facets that if we could start to pull out the human side of person and actually see how they thrive, why they're passionate, what makes them, how they learn, we could start to identify more of what their strengths are, and it can't just be on the numbers. We have to look at this human behavior side of a person, and if we could actually foster some dialogue with them and give them resources and tools so that they could be more effective as a person, they're going to play better. So we have to look at their mental wellness side of it. I mean, we're constantly looking at their performance, their stats, and they have to get stronger, they have to get faster. Mm-hmm. But what about the whole mental side of this?
I've heard you say before that you look at a person 360. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, 360 is looking at them holistically. And like I was just kind of sharing, like everyone's looking at the physical stats of it. I mean, I appreciate all the stats in sports. They definitely are helpful. But what about the emotional side of the person? What about how they're feeling? What's the mental wellness of the person? And too, you don't have to be in crisis to help someone. What if something's just going on and they're home, and how's that going to play into when they show up on the court or the field or the ice? So you have to talk to them and see what's going on in their whole world, not just when they're playing on the court, not just when they're coming on the ice. You have to look at the person 360 because everything affects everything. It's no different than our bodies. You know, if you start having your knee or your chest, it's coming from something, and it didn't just come from, oh, well, it was one time I didn't eat well. It was because maybe you haven't been eating well for a while, or maybe you're stress eating because there's a problem at your home, or when you have panic attacks. That panic attack just didn't happen just because. There's a lot more going on. And so you have to look at the person consistently from a 360 approach so that you can help them better. It's one of the greatest advantages that we'll have when we really know the whole person of who we're dealing with. And we owe that to them. They give so much of their life, and we can't just keep looking at them from a number standpoint. Every one of us are human beings.
You were the first occupational therapist in the NBA and maybe even in pro sports. And I have to imagine that with alpha males, with some of the stigmatisms that come with being a professional athlete, that there was resistance, maybe people who didn't understand, and that's why they resisted. How did you kind of get them to trust you and to recognize that this isn't because something is wrong with you, it's because I want you to be better? Right.
I think the first thing, like anything, is yes, you're going to face adversity. And people always coming in, first they think, if you're coming to me, is there something wrong with me? And like one of the guys that I worked with, when I was asked to work with him, I said, when he said, is there something wrong with me that you're here? I said, no, you've been identified as a leader. And I said, because you're a leader, all great leaders have a coach. They help them grow. I said, I'm here to just help teach you some leadership skills that you could do, because now part of your role is how do you pull the best out of others? You're one of the best, but how do you pull the best out of them? So you have to identify with them. You have to build trust. You have to show them they actually have the strengths that they have, and they're human. And so you build this rapport with them, and you show you're honest, why you're there, what you're helping with. And not everything, like I said, is crisis. And when they start to see, oh, they're here to actually make me better as a leader, that's not because I'm doing something wrong. That's because what leader can't use help getting better? We all should be evolving. That's a growth mindset. And we met every week for 9 months, and he thrived. He completely thrived because he had someone that came alongside him that believed in him, and it wasn't just for how he performed on the court. It was for who he was as a person.
Darleen Santore is a mental conditioning coach who's worked with athletes in all of the 4 major professional sports as well as in other walks of life. And she's with us here after hours on CBS Sports Radio. The idea, though, of mental health is one that still is murky. We don't understand everything there is to know. I don't even think it's possible to understand what happens in our brains completely. And you have some athletes who come out and say, okay, I've struggled in this area with my mental health. But still, though, how have you seen it kind of open up to a point where now maybe it's not as taboo to talk about?
I think players are starting to feel a little bit safer talking about what they're feeling, their emotions a little bit more, because it just took one person to say, hey, I'm having trouble with this, and then they don't feel like they don't have to feel alone in it. They don't feel like something's wrong with them, that they realize that this is something that a lot of people deal with, and just by talking and seeking treatment or just having an outlet, they can get over it. You know, if you keep pushing something under the rug, it's going to manifest some way, in another way that's not going to be healthy. But what I try to share with a lot of the players I work with is the more we talk about it and the quicker we get to it, the better you're going to be, and you're going to heal from it and recover from it and move through it, or learn strategies on how to handle whatever it is. And we're starting to see that mental health is, if it's something that you're dealing with, you can help work through it. You could treat it. You can provide strategies that will help you so you can gain coping strategies or get healthy as a result of seeking treatment. No different than if you had an orthopedic problem, you'd go and get treatment for it, you deal with it, and then you're over it, you're through it. But you had to learn strategies, or you had to seek help for it. And mental health is something that the more people start to come out and share and show the outcomes of how you start to actually feel better just by seeking treatment, then people start to say, okay, well, maybe then I could step forward and ask for help.
How many of you are there in professional sports? Like, how many other peak performance coaches are there now, across the U.S.?
Actually, it's I give a lot of the teams so much credit because they're seeing that this is a need, and the NFL just put out that they're putting mental health. They want 8 to 10 hours per week within teams, and players are going to receive that so that they have that as access. And so I give a lot of credit to a lot of the teams and the league being able to see that this is now a resource that every player should have access to. And so it's become more and more of a viable option. And I think that with that, we're going to hopefully be able to see that players have the help that they need, and they'll have healthier, happier lives than just kind of hiding through things.
When you say they are mandating that teams offer this time for athletes to focus on their mental health, does that mean time sitting with someone like you, a mental conditioning coach?
Yep. It has to be someone that is in the mental health space that's qualified to be able to help them through various things depending on what they're dealing with. So they will have that option now, and if they need something, they'll have someone that's licensed and certified to help them.
The athletes call her Coach Darleen Santore. She's a peak performance coach, and she's worked with pro athletes in all the sports around the U.S. It's After Hours here on CBS Sports Radio. It's such a new thing, I think, not just for athletes, but for us as fans to even think about that side of an athlete. But how do you see them change? You mentioned one player that you worked with, he thrived. What are the noticeable changes when they start to focus on their mental conditioning as well as their physical conditioning?
You really start to see them obviously improving their performance because they increase confidence. They have increased confidence. They have a greater mental endurance. So one of the things I was asked once before is, what's the change from 10 years ago to now? And I said, well, with the way the world is moving so fast with social media and access to information and instant gratification, we've lost this ability for emotional agility and mental endurance. So emotional agility is coping. You often sometimes see people, well, I don't like this, and, they react or they just respond, and they don't have any way to regulate their behavior, so they just react to it, and it could have some negative effects. So working through this and teaching them strategies, they now learn how to cope with things, because with everything social, you could tweet instantly, you could say something instantly, you don't like something, you could swipe left, swipe right. I mean, it's just everything is just so easy to just change. I don't like this coach. I don't like this player. And we have to learn people to give them we have to give our players, and really everyone I'm talking to in this, we have to learn how to endure through adversity. And you don't just retreat as soon as something is not going well. And that is not just for the game, but I teach them how do they do that in relationships? How do they have effective communication with their coaches, within media? And then the mental endurance is withstanding through things so that you can endure. I mean, literally attention span. I mean, people go on Insta stories and it's 15 seconds, and if they see too many, they're like, this is too long. They have 4 15-second increments. Oh my gosh, I'm done. I'm not watching this. So you can imagine when we're going through film or we're trying to teach something, it's like, I have to sit here for even 1 hour? Like, there's no way. We've lost the ability to attend to tasks. So I actually have to take them through and give them strategies on how to build focus. Now, play that out into the sport when you're having to go in overtime or you have to really focus on it. You've learned how to put yourself in the zone to be able to sustain it, which allows you to perform better. And then obviously you've built the coping skills. Mm-hmm. And so you show up better, not only as a player, in your relationships, in the community, and you thrive. And you end up, what happens is a lot of players, when we're done working, they're not just happier on the court and performing better, but they're happier in life. And they show up and they didn't realize that this is maybe some of the challenges they were facing. So giving them these tools really allows them to have better lives, because I want them to have great lives. It's not just about winning championships, but it's about winning on and off the court and the field and the ice.
But after everything that you've overcome, how much does it mean to you to be able to pour into the lives of other people and to see them thrive?
Quickly, I'll just say that it's so important. This is what I would do if money was no object. I'd still be doing this. It's what I love. It fuels me every single day. It's my passion and mission. And what you shared, I started out as an occupational therapist helping traumatic brain injury patients come out of coma and regain their life. I mean, overcome extreme odds. And then I myself had gone through 3 strokes, one just a year ago. But I've had my first stroke at 25 and then 2 more since then. And last year being the most recent one. And you have to be willing to be lifted by your purpose and your mission every day. Because, when you overcome adversity, what's waking you up? Something bigger's got to wake you up to show up. So in sports, when you have someone who, is working towards their contract and they tear their ACL or some injury comes, and you have to say, you can overcome this. There is nothing you can't overcome, but it's going to take you every day showing up and keeping a bigger purpose, knowing that you're here for something bigger. And something bigger, I'm saying, is, yes, you want to win a championship. I know that, but it's also about this platform that you get to help affect and change lives too. And so I'm no different than how I help the patient overcome odds to regain their life again. When I could help a player have their best life and lead, just, thrive in what they're doing, it's one of the greatest joys, because any day my life could end. Any of us could. So I might just have a little bit more odds against me. But that being said, it's just one of those things where we don't know when we're getting called out. So if I could help people live their best life now and help them thrive, to me, there's just nothing more fulfilling than that, than helping another human being live their best life and reach their highest potential.
And certainly means more when your heart and your soul is in it, because you understand about surviving and thriving. Darleen Santore is a peak performance coach. Everyone calls her Coach Dar, and she was with us here after hours. Just wanted to ask you one more question, because any woman who's listening to this, we all know Lululemon, right? I mean, it's the brand for anyone who does yoga, for likes those comfy clothes, and you have a different role with them, which fascinates me as an ambassador. What do you get to do as an ambassador with Lululemon?
I feel very honored. They pick ambassadors throughout the world to present, and it's people that they've identified that meet their mission and help awaken greatness in others and contribute to the community and the world for a greater calling. And they've asked me to be on board, and really it's to continue to do what I do, but do things within the community and throughout the country, and helping people to, they call it the sweat life, where when you sweat together, you connect together, you grow together, but keeping people healthy and helping them thrive. And since in my role, what I do is helping people awaken greatness and reach their potential, it aligns with theirs. So we get to share in each other's missions and share about the journey and really connect people to go deeper so they could have better lives.
Fantastic. Now, you can follow her on Twitter at the Coach Dar. And again, she's worked with athletes in all the 4 major professional sports plus other industries, a peak performance coach, a mental conditioning coach. She's trying to get to the other side of the athletes. It's so good to have you on the show finally. Thanks so much for a couple of minutes.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thanks so much for having me on tonight.